Yeah, the obvious joke is, it's not that slim. The folks at Unihertz sent over a phone for me to play with, the Titan Slim, with a cute little keyboard. Look at that at the bottom. I take this one kinda personal. I was a huge fan of that other brand that had keyboards on their phones, and I was always crushingly disappointed in techies talking about this kind of hardware.
But what about the average, basic, average consumers?
Yes, we get it. The all touchscreen phone won. But here's what I need you to do. I need you to think beyond your own preferences. Because if you're watching videos like these, you're probably not representative of average. Phones are not one thing, and we should be dividing them into different categories for different needs. Some folks out there are looking at a low-cost communicator. Their only needs are messaging and keeping up with conversations, and there's a much lower focus on other entertainment or media features. Of those low-cost communicator folks, there's an even smaller community of people who focus on the messaging to such a degree that they prefer the experience of a tactile keyboard. If your reaction to that demographic is,
but that's not very many people, so they don't deserve to have a niche product for their needs and wants. I only want average consumer popular phones to ever be allowed to exist.
I think it's pretty clear you're bad at tech, and I'd rather you block me and never watch any of my videos. The conclusion and the top of this video, so I got a little spicy there. The Titan Slim gets a nod. I'm giving this a generally positive review, but in part because there's so little competition left for this idea. When you search for Unihertz on Google, the tagline from the company is, "Unique smartphones for the minorities." They obviously don't mean those minorities. It's a little clumsy. I feel something's been lost in translation. But immediately, it matters how we grade these phones, and it shouldn't be the same measuring as where we would rank a $300-ish all-screen phone. I think Unihertz has done their job marketing the smaller potential audience for their products. Adding this much hardware and keeping the price lower than that other brand who no longer exists, this hardware means we're gonna find some compromises in other areas. The Titan Slim is kinda chunky. It's narrow slim, but not depth slim. The structure of the phone is a broad cylinder with a shiny plastic on the rear. And it comes with this grippy bumper case and a headphone dongle. I say use this because the plastic here has that kind of really inexpensive feel. And as you're sliding the phone around in your fingers, the extra grip from the case really does do a better job of helping you stay on the keyboards. I find that the typing experience improves just for having that extra grip. I put the case on upside down. Let's fix that right now. If there's a hardware deal breaker for folks out there that I think is fair, I really wish this had a headphone jack, and it's mind-boggling. At a phone this thick, they couldn't find some space for one. I am kinda bummed about losing the memory card on this messaging phone, but 256 gigs of built-in storage at this price should do most people fine. The headphone jack is just so darn practical. For this category of phone, losing it and using a dongle, that is a bummer. I mean, I have to believe there is a significant Venn diagram overlap on people who want old-fashioned features like keyboards and also want old-fashioned features like headphone jacks. The screen is okay. It's an all right LCD, 1280 by 768. That's an unconventional resolution, but I found most vertical scrolling and messaging apps handled that just fine. It could be a little brighter. It's not the easiest to read in California sun, but it's okay in this price tier. Like a direct sun showdown with my Pixel 6 Pro, it looks okay. Like I could read that if I were kind of squinting into it a little bit. Also, the speaker is respectably loud, if audio quality is also what we'd expect from this price tier on a mono bottom firing speaker. And the haptics here are pretty strong, but it's It's using one of those older, fuzzier motors. We're detailing a lot of compromises here, but I am happy to see an IR blaster. I still think they're handy. We have so many mismatched TV and stereo components in my home. It's nice being able to kind of control everything from a phone, but I would have happily traded that for a headphone jack. If I had to pick anything to be sort of a port on the top of this, you know which one I'd pick. And I just feel I need to get the camera out of the way here because it's just okay. It also feels like an older phone compromise. The resolution sounds impressive, but you're not gonna lean on this for content creation. In good light, you'll get okay stills. The video topping out at 1080p with some attempt at software stabilization is okay. It's a messaging phone, and you'll be fine. Video calling and the occasional point and shoot snapshot, it's gonna be okay. It's functional optical hardware. But again, I have to put it in that category of user who wants the keyboard first and foremost and is willing to sacrifice other areas of a phone for a tactile typing experience. I cannot reiterate this point enough. Happily, the overall performance is right in a sweet spot for a low-cost communicator. A MediaTek Helio P70. It's not gonna rock anyone's socks. It's not built for heavy multitasking. But following a few updates, this is a fine single app solution. Getting around the UI, especially using the keyboard as a trackpad, that's nice and smooth. Scrolling through conversations in messaging is great. And they mostly fixed that issue where if you start typing on the home screen to start a Google search, your first couple characters used to get sort of garbled up in the lag transitioning to the Google search screen. That's been a lot smoother recently. We've got plenty of power for video streaming and listening to podcasts and other more passive entertainment. I wouldn't try to run games beyond simple graphics solitaire or dots. I got all my apps ready to do the performance testing, and then I just kind of didn't. I just don't see where people are really looking to this and thinking they're gonna edit 4K video, like my tests are focused on. The reception is pretty good. It's an LTE only device, and my testing is gonna be a bit more limited. I'm out in the burbs, and I don't have great LTE, so I do feel a bit of a sting losing 5G. All of our local network upgrades have basically just been 5G radios. So that is a little bit of a concern. LTE isn't likely to get much improvement over the next couple of years from our carriers. That is something that I would balance the expected life cycle of a phone like this against the reasonable, the lower price that Unihertz is selling this phone at. But that brings us to the core focus of the phone, the keyboard. The keys are nice and clicky, they're decently backlit. The layout is unfamiliar if you've spent as much time typing on a BlackBerry Key 2 as I have, but it's charmingly old-fashioned for including things like hardware back and multitasking buttons. The fingerprint sensor can double as a home button, immediately disable the single press home. That's awful. Any accidental brushing near that sensor will take you out of the app you're using. I had very good experiences activating double tap to go home. That's worked great for me. We don't have quite the same organic interaction with keyboard and apps as we had on BlackBerries, but it's decently close. The trickiest part of reviewing a keyboard phone is properly expressing the customization. Literally every keyboard phone eventually becomes a wholly unique experience to the user who owns it. I think that's one of the reasons why keyboard junkies have a hard time going to an all-screen device. Your muscle memory is trained on physical landmarks. Every key on the phone can be programmed for different interactions or shortcuts. Give two different people keyboards, and really make those people use those phones, and within 2 weeks, you'll have two completely different devices on top of the normal customization found in Android. I really can't let the psychology of that go, and I think too many reviewers are quick to dismiss it. The popular solution is to just go all screen. Just do that. But there's this little audience of keyboard junkies that live the experience of quick actions, shortcuts, and spending less time swiping around a UI instead of doing the direct action they want to accomplish. Of all the communicator phones currently being sold, it's that action. You can hold down a key, memorizing where it is to launch an app or dial a call. It's the most effortless interaction available, and it works faster. It's more consistent for a lot of folks than trying to do an assistant app launch or an assistant voice call. That's really where these gadgets shine, and they're the hardest part to properly describe. If a reviewer lives out of an iPhone and spends a week with this under embargo, you really can't capture a sense of why. Why is there this tiny audience of people who refuse to let the keyboard go? Because I really don't love the tone applying motive to some of these companies. It's not Unihertz just recycling an old solution for the giggles. Reviewers acting like Unihertz is making a novelty that no one is asking for. The company is making claims about a hardware feature, and the company is telling people they know this is a tiny niche feature, and it's the most successful part of this phone. Punching out a couple words as a reply in a text, I'd say software is still faster. The thing I love about hardware keyboards, I find I'm more willing to type out a bit more of a message. I will invest in longer emails on a Unihertz or on my BlackBerry than I will on a touchscreen, even with glide typing. I'm definitely not as familiar here as I am on my Key 2, but I can see that working here similarly on the Titan Slim with a bit more experience. And when combined with a decently large battery and a low power SoC, you should be able to run this for a solid 2 days of use on a single charge. Okay, I promise you we're bringing this plane in for a landing. As we wrap this up, I've presented the Titan Slim with a positive tone, but trying to capture the essence of a narrow-focused product. In years past, I would have held up a BlackBerry and pointed out how these are more expensive, but probably more well-rounded devices. We all know that these don't exist anymore. The Titan Slim only has other Unihertz phones to really compete against. And it's pretty clear what Unihertz is trying to do here. There's the Titan, and that's a big chunk of a phone. Then the Titan Pocket, which is a smaller, big chunk of a phone. And then the Titan Slim is the narrower, little, big chunk of a phone. I personally feel the OG Titan form factor is a nicer build, more rugged, headphone jacks, and memory card slots, but someone who wants a smaller hands version of that experience with a slightly more traditional aspect ratio on the display. But for folks who get really cranky in the comments that I don't spell this out enough, why I'm giving this a positive review, because it's a niche of a niche of a niche. Communicator phone, keyboard phone, narrower keyboard phone. The Titan Slim deserves a good grade. It's clear in what it's attempting to do. The estimation of success, however, I'm not sure how large that audience might be. And it's gonna be really tricky finding those people who will genuinely be a good fit for this phone and making sure they even know it exists. So you really have to balance those pros and cons, but if you're honest about your needs and wants, well, then this is the solution. And that's the thing that bugs me about a lot of reviewer tone. We look at some hardware, if it's not popular, we lump everything else into unconventional, but there's radical unconventional like dual displays and folding phones, and then there's old-fashioned unconventional. I've always loved keyboards. From the oldest days of Windows Mobile and Pocket PC communicators, the Palm Treos, the OG Blackberries, the very first Galaxy S phone on Sprint. For a lot of the things that Unihertz is trying to mimic from a BlackBerry, the Titan Slim doesn't remind me so much of a phone like the Key 2 as much as it does some of our older Motorola's. Chunkier Android phones, dedicated home buttons and controls, the little tic-tacky keys, probably a little thicker than it needs to be, but very practical communication-focused devices of old. Definitely inspired, this was to compete against old BlackBerries, but it didn't really feel like a BlackBerry. The Titan Slim is definitely giving me a little bit more of that old Motorola vibe. There's just no more BlackBerry to be an alternative against. Unihertz is now the last serious player left in the keyboard game. The Titan Slim is an inexpensive solution for communication and messaging, But it really should have had a headphone jack. Oh, I will, of course, leave some links down below for more information on the Unihertz Titan Slim, where you can shop these bad boys online. As always, thanks so much for watching, for sharing these videos, and subscribing to the channel. All of the support lately has been absolutely fantastic. If you're catching those links in the description, hitting my home site, SomeGadgetGuy.com, or if you're joining the list of names scrolling by on your screen from my Patreon, that's patreon.com/SomeGadgetGuy. This list is the coolest collection of tech pals in the universe. So I hope you'll check them out. Now, you know where you can find me around the rest of the internet, at SomeGadgetGuy on the Twitters and the Twitch, so much on the Facebooks and the Instagrams, but I will catch you all on the next review.